What in the world is September 1st like for athletes? We've been able to touch on it at least once in previous podcasts, but that's what this podcast is all about. Amanda Freed, Daron, Sutton, PGF Players Podcast, in the perspective of Gaby Mizelle, who made her commitment, and after September 1st, it opened up. She went everywhere, and she's going to Virginia Tech. She, by the way, plays for Georgia Impact. And then Ambry Taylor, who committed to Alabama. She's from Alabama. Again, September 1st, she talks about what led up to it and what happened afterwards. Amanda, this one may be my favorite, with all due respect to all the great guests we've had on, because we have two that have gone through it within the last couple of months, and it's super insightful what they shared.
I think my favorite part was the fact that they did their research before September 1st and talked about the bells and whistles of the clock hitting midnight on that day, but they took their trips. They really got to know these different coaches and the different programs and ultimately landed on what felt like home. And I love the process behind that and what it teaches young athletes that, you know, you might have something in mind, but until you go out and explore, you know, then you'll land on that one thing that's right. And I think these athletes did it right. They've got great perspectives. They love their families. They took their families' experiences and everything into account when they make their decisions. And it was fun hearing them, how they landed on what they chose.
Again, both are 25s. Both are some of the best middle infielders in the country. Gaby, again, from Garner, North Carolina, and Ambrey is from Curry, Alabama, which is just up north of Birmingham. That's our podcast. What happens leading up to and then after September 1st for two commits? PGF Players Podcast starts now. The Players Podcast, and we had the opportunity in last week's podcast, the last episode, I should say, to dive into with one athlete, the piece of commitment. What happens on September 1st? What happens leading up? What happens on that day? And what happens after when you get to know your choices and really communicate beyond camps, which a lot of these athletes do go through as younger athletes, but now it really begins. And we're talking with one of the top middle infielders in the country when we talk with Gaby Mizelle. She's from Garner, North Carolina. Her commitment on September 28th, that's at least when she made it public, was to Virginia Tech. Gaby spends time with us now. Gaby, thanks for hanging out in the Players Podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
And look, we can go as deep as you want, and Amanda's going to follow up, but what happened once the clock struck midnight on September 1st in your world, behind the scenes? What did it look like?
It was definitely something in my life that it was such a memorable event. Our whole family was a little bit nervous up until then. We got home from dinner. We ate dinner at our favorite family restaurant, and we came back and we were playing some spades to kind of pass the time and ease our nerves. But when clock hit midnight, everything changed. I got a lot of calls, very blessed, a lot of calls, a lot of texts, emails. So it was great to have my coaches, Coach Teo and Coach Mitch, really guide me through this process and my family. But it was great, honestly. I was super blessed to meet all of the amazing coaches out there.
So what was that first conversation like, if you don't mind sharing who it was with and kind of the nerves maybe that you went through as you actually picked up the phone and had a conversation and really got to experience what that first recruiting exchange was like?
So the first phone call I answered was Coach Leftwich at NC State. I was actually really excited that it was her because we clicked really well at the NC State camp I went to. And she's such an amazing person and she's so easy to talk to that it definitely calmed my nerves for the rest of the night and made the other calls after that easier.
That makes a lot of sense because you can be intimidated or you can kind of get your feet wet. And somebody like her who's taken on this big role, her head coaching position, what a tremendous, I guess, opportunity for her to be able to talk to you as well. So what in the end was it about Virginia Tech? I'm assuming you took some other visits to campuses and experienced some other programs. Ultimately, what was it about the Hokies that drew your attention?
I have been extremely interested in Virginia Tech for the past, I'd say, 2.5 years. And ever since I stepped foot on the first camp I went to 2 years ago, I knew I just had a feeling. It really felt like home. People say that. And when I actually got to experience, I knew it's a real thing. I love the coaches, Coach Mike, Coach Pete, Coach Josh, Coach Mamu. Everybody's so great. The environment is like no other. It's such a family environment, and it's a place where you can compete at the highest level, playing for people that really have your best interests in an environment where you don't have to feel super nervous all the time and you don't have to be worried. You can have fun while playing, and that's just really what made the difference.
We like positivity on this podcast, so I'd love to throw some other spots that you either visited or connected with you, and tell me what was positive about the experience. And I'll just roll them out. You tell me something positive about the experience. Duke, what was positive about your interaction with Duke?
Duke, both of my parents went there, so I have been a Duke fan my entire life, and I have so much respect for Coach Marissa. She has done such an amazing job at building Duke up to the program that they are today, top 10 program. Super close to home, which I also loved, and the academics and athletics being able to do both at such a high level. That's why I was extremely interested in Duke.
Virginia,
another high academic school, and the coaches there are amazing. I've known Coach, she has like your best interests, and you know that. And the family environment there too, super amazing.
very, very good. Did you get a phone call there? Is that what just happened? You got a phone call that came in?
I did, yes.
They're still coming.
Oh my gosh, it's always fun. They're still coming. One more for you. Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech.
I loved Coach Mo. She was one of the most amazing people that I've met through this process. Another high academic school, and that's super important to me because, like I said, both my parents went to Duke, so my brother and I have always been pushed in the classroom as well as on the field. Georgia Tech, love the school. Coaches are amazing, and another good environment, just a little bit far, I'd say, because I'm really close with my family, but another great school.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into your family. I'm not going to steal all the questions. I have one more before Amanda jumps back in. And you talked about Coach Teo. It's Teo Kamal. You talked about Coach Mitch. That's Coach Mitch Root. I love to mention them by name on this podcast. Georgia Impact Premier, your travel team. How did they prepare you for this? You mentioned the coaches individually by name, and they were right there by your side. But being a part of a program that you played for, traveling out with them in big events, how has the program overall, Georgia Impact, prepared you to get to this point?
I would say that joining Georgia Impact was the best decision I've ever made with softball, because they know how to prepare you best for college. They know how to develop your IQ, not just only your physical skills. And it's an environment where you can play and have the most fun, but also be competing against the best teams and growing in all aspects of the game. The way that they really invest in you as a player and a person, and they create an environment with kids that are all very similar, as in they have the same morals, the same goals, just good people. So it's great to be able to play on a team where you're surrounded by good people.
And you mentioned over this last year that the biggest area of growth you experienced was in your leadership. I'm curious, what that was like for you, because from my experience, I wasn't vocal. Leadership didn't come naturally. For some, it does. I know that your play speaks for itself on the field, but what did you mean by your growth being in the leadership department?
So I'm actually a very naturally more introverted person, but being a shortstop, you obviously have to be extremely vocal. You have to be a leader on the team. So for me, knowing how to step up and be able to do that and kind of put aside my introverted tendencies was definitely something that took a little bit of time for me to really get confident in. I'd say the best thing that I went through to help me develop this was this past high school season. About a quarter of the way through the season, I got a concussion, so I was out for a couple weeks. So when I came back, it took me a little while, as it would anybody, to kind of get back hitting as well as I knew I could. But for me, the biggest thing was staying positive and staying a leader on the field. Because while I struggled a little bit getting back right to as well as I could hit, my defense stayed extremely strong, and it was really important to not let that affect both sides of the field, to still be able to help our team and make a good run in playoffs.
And moving forward into this year, as you prepare to go on to the next level, what is that next step for you? In maybe it's your physical ability on the field, your leadership. What is that going to look like for you? What are you going to take advantage of this next year in order to prepare yourself to go on to Virginia Tech?
I think that continuing to play with Coach Teo is going to really help me. he is just, the way that he prepares you, like I said, is like no other. Continuing to work on my own and in school ball, and continuing to be a leader on the field, and continuing to work outside of practices, and then in games, pushing myself to be vocal even when, like, everybody knows that sometimes in softball it's hard to like want to speak up because you don't know if you're going to make the right decision. But for me, it's just I need to continue to tell myself to keep doing that, because I know that in college that's exactly what I'm going to have to do.
Your family is unique, and your relationship with your family is warm and inviting. It really, really is, in understanding the role they play. Let me start with your dad, Jason. I know he's played a big role in your life. He not only went to Duke, but he wrestled at Duke, so he was a competitive athlete as well. Tell me a bit about Dad.
My dad and I are super, super close. A lot of kids probably say they're close to their parents, but I feel like sports has really helped me have like an even better and stronger relationship with both my parents. So my dad, he played baseball when he was younger too, so he definitely has experience playing. And he was one of my first coaches when I was younger, and then now he's obviously not, but we work out all the time. And I think that us having a lot of one-on-one time to work and get better, I mean, it's just like no other. We're able to travel all the time together, and he's just one of my biggest supporters in life. And really, like, he's just so special because the way that he pushes me on and off the field, and he's just the most selfless person I know.
So have baseball time, your dad did, which you benefit from, but so does Nate, your brother. And you've called your brother one of your best friends, and you guys are partners in crime as diamond athletes for sure. Catcher, I know, but he also pitches. I know he plays for the Canes team. I know Coach Adam Mosley that he played for this summer. I love him. I know he played well at the 14U WWBA. You see, that's my wheelhouse, his space. And I know your brother Nate can play, so I wanted to get all that out there. He can play, and I'm excited to see where he ends up next. Now,
absolutely.
Now tell me about your relationship with him.
We are just one grade apart. So I think that's also really, like, a lot of his friends are my friends, and a lot of my friends are his friends. So we are really close because we've grown up playing together and working out together. And then we just get along so well. Like, he is honestly my best friend, my built-in best friend, and I know that he will always have my back and I will always have his. And I would love, like, I can't imagine going to a different school than him, but I know that he's going to end up wherever he's meant to be. And I'm just super excited for him because he's super smart, super athletic, such an amazing player, an amazing person, and honestly just my best friend in the whole world.
That's a good answer. I hope my kids talk about each other like that when they get older. That's amazing. They're very close as well and both love all the sports. You talked a little bit about your international experience. Talk about that over the summer, playing for the Dominican Republic, how cool that was of an experience. They do such a great job today of bringing all these athletes into their different nationalities to play against one another and kind of bring a different level of fun to the game. But talk about your experience with international play.
So last year was my second year playing for the Dominican Republic team, and I think it was such a cool experience both years, and I'm going to hopefully continue to do it all the next years that I possibly can, because the environment is like no other. Like, you have cheering in travel ball and in high school ball, but our fans have noisemakers, songs, they're up there dancing. Like, it is just such a fun environment, and everybody is so relaxed, and it's so cool to like see that, because that's like my mom's culture, and to really connect more with it.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and so you mentioned Mom. Let's go ahead and talk about Mom. Born and raised in the DR, and obviously, you spoke and shared about getting to know at some point in the next life your abuelo, who you were very young when you lost him. Obviously, he was at Puerto Rico at the time. But your mom, Carla, introduced us to Carla as someone who was married to a passionate Latin woman myself. I'm a little bit biased. So tell me about Mom. That's what Mom is the reason you're able to rep the DR. Tell me about Mom, though.
My mom, she's my best friend too. She is definitely like my number one supporter. I can tell her anything. She supports me in every single thing that I do. I'm really lucky to have such a good relationship with her. Because it's just so special, because you see some families that aren't as close, but my mom and I, we can do everything together, not just softball and traveling. which I just love so much. She is the most hardworking woman I know, and I just really look up to her. From her living in the Dominican Republic, moving to the United States when she was just 17 years old and going to Duke, and getting such a high level degree, she just really inspires me to work hard and do my best at everything I do.
Yeah, it's a family podcast, but they call someone like that a bad you know what. So that means she gets it done. She gets it done, her work ethic. And that is admirable that she does that she did that when she was younger and that she's passed it on to you. One quick thing before we let you go. Is it still gel deodorant only on game days or have you grown past that? Gotcha.
I would say I have had to grow past that one. I was at one of my tournaments and it broke. I remember this moment and I was like, Dad, what am I going to do? I don't have my gel deodorant. And so he had his spray deodorant and I used it and I guess I did well in that game. And so he's like, see, I told you it wasn't the deodorant. so now I use my spray deodorant.
Ending on a serious note, Gabriella, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on all you've accomplished. Thanks for hanging out with Amanda and I on the Players Podcast.
Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I had a great time.
Yeah, all you young athletes, pay attention, listen, the journey, the commitment, listening to the family, what they've been through, making the sacrifices. Great stuff to learn from Gabby. More on the Players Podcast, brought to you by PGF in just a moment. So now we shift gears, yet we're on the same subject, and we're excited to speak with an athlete who committed to Alabama. And Ambry Taylor joins us and spends time with us. It's another middle infielder, certainly who can hop in the circle and pitch. And Ambry, thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Curry High School, Curry, Alabama, and a beautiful part of the world, the Birmingham Thunderbolts, your travel team. All of that built into your resume heading into September 1st. I get the best question of them all because when it struck midnight September 1st, what happened behind the scenes? What was it like in the hours before? What happened right after? What was September 1st like?
Okay, so I went to a football game to get my mind off of it because I was extremely nervous. And then I came home and I got prepared. And as soon as the clock hit 12, as soon as the clock hit 12, I had phone calls and messages and everything all coming in at once. And my phone was going crazy. It was exciting, but it was insane.
Well, and it had to have been really overwhelming because you hope for that type of experience, but the reality is you have no idea what's going to come. So, I mean, what was your process like leading up to that in terms of identifying the colleges that you felt were the best fit, talking to coaches, attending camps? What kind of helped you to build up that momentum towards September 1st?
So I started going to camps around my freshman year, and I always knew I wanted to play in the SEC. It's pretty close to home and great competition all over. So I went to a bunch of SEC camps and everything. And I got a lot of mail, emails, everything, the whole shebang. And then September 1st came. And it was exciting hearing from those coaches saying more than, hey, nice to see you. It was very exciting.
Yeah, and Alabama seems like a pretty appropriate fit because you're from Alabama, you're part of a top-notch program. Obviously, they've had their eye on you, but you did entertain other offers. You took official visits, which I love. Tell me a little bit about what you found in some of your other favorite trips and what ultimately it was about Alabama that drew your commitment.
Okay, so I started off with the Mississippis, of course. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they were so beautiful and nice and lots of reconstruction going on, building to be better. But, I'm an Alabama kid, so going to Alabama and you getting to go on the football field and see their World Series and stuff. They play new videos for everything. It was just insane. And every little girl's dream in Alabama is to obviously play for an Alabama team. So it was really exciting and I was starstruck. So
it's interesting too, going through that journey and having the opportunity, to kind of learn your place in all of it, right? I mean, you were the state player of the year, so you earned that opportunity as just a sophomore as the state player of the year. But then to hear back from those schools, it kind of pays off all the work you've put in. So the work you have put in this year, in 2023, what part of your game, you had an answer for me in the summer, and I'm wondering if it changed. What part of your game has changed and improved the most in this year, 2023?
So I really focused on learning how to trust myself this year because I knew it was my big year for recruiting. And that is definitely what I improved the most on, was trusting myself, especially like in the box and everything, because that's a huge part of it. The mental game really like stepped up this year for me. I've always been like confident in the field, so stepping up that part of my game really helped me out.
So it's interesting. And by the way, to let all our viewers and listeners know, we can hear you clearly. I know you lost your voice, but you sound great. If you want to expound upon something, you can pause, catch your breath, and keep talking. So we get it. We've all been there. But I want to ask you, if you say that, basically you're telling me you learn to trust yourself more, that huge word trust. Interestingly enough, I know you can't see this, but I wrote the word trust right here on your biography. I wrote, because I've read not only in what you shared with me, but in many articles you use that word trust. So when you say I learned to trust myself more, there's a lot of branches to go off that tree. How, though? Give me an example of how, and maybe some of the mental practices that go into that.
So I've worked hard my entire life, really, but like I would never apply that part to the game. So I started doing like breathing exercises and stuff, and be like, okay, you've got this. You've put the work in. You've been in this situation millions of times, because I started the PGF tournament in 10U. So I've been there every single year since. So like knowing I've been there before really helped me out, and just like I had no pressure at that point. If I was like, okay, I've done this before, that's all my pressure gone. So that part, and yeah, I really just like I've gotten a lot bigger recently, like growing into an athlete. So I'm like, people kind of, how do I explain this? I get like less good pitches and everything, so I kind of let the game like come to me more this year. So that was part of like trusting, like trust the game to come to you instead of you trying to go for everything. So it helped me a lot, that part.
And I'm sure being surrounded by the great athletes that you have been since 10U, when you started going to PGF, makes a big difference also, and probably allows yourself to trust yourself a little bit better, knowing that you've got such greatness around you. And as I'm scrolling through your social media feed, it's really cool to see you kind of acknowledge and praise and encourage your teammates and the friends that you've met along the way as they go through their recruiting journey as well. Has that been fun for you to kind of, have those conversations with your friends that are experiencing the same things, and maybe you've played together, but you've chosen different collegiate paths? How much fun has that been to walk each other through that process?
It's just so exciting getting to see everyone live their dream right now. Like they're all going on visits and having fun and committing to all their dream colleges. Like a bunch of my friends are going to their dream colleges, and it's just, I'm so happy for them. And I love like just watching everyone's smiles and stuff and be excited whenever they see their coaches or go on a visit again. Like it's great. I'm really happy for everyone. It's been so fun.
And you talk about trusting yourself, but physically, is there something physically in your game that's going to take you to that next level? Speed, power. I mean, is there that thing that you're focusing on a little bit more before you head out to Alabama?
Yeah, there's multiple actually. But I'm really working on like quickness, side to side wise. Like I'm okay at it, but I know I can be better, and that's what I want to work on right now. So
Side to side quickness. The slug has come this year. I mean, you had 11 home runs unofficially this summer. You had 61 extra base hits, 16 homers in the spring as the player of the year. So the slug has definitely come. You praised your dad on Father's Day on social media, and I saw it. And as a dad, it warmed my heart. I have 4 daughters, so that would mean the world to me to either hear something like that privately, which I'm sure he did, but also what you shared. A hitting partner, a personal coach, a travel ball partner, a best friend, and a first love. Those are the words of respect you had for your dad, Bobby. So it's easy to tell how you feel about what your dad has guided you through, but why don't you, with your words, albeit hoarse, why don't you describe your dad and what your dad means to you?
Well, it makes me tear up thinking about it, because he's just done so much for me over the years. Like he started me when I was young. He was like, you're going to be great if you're going to play. So he kind of got me into this whole thing. And it's just been so fun to go through it with him. Like this process was just as much for him as it was for me. So it was just so fun. And he really is my best friend. We fight, we argue. It's just great. Like I tear up thinking about it.
Well, that's good. Hopefully, I can find more ways to work on your voice. Now, I got you crying and your voice. Your mom, Nina, certainly is his partner and your travel ball guide as well. Tell us a little bit about mom and the guidance she's provided to you as a woman.
She's like my support system, of course, because me and dad argue, as every kid and their dad does. So like she doesn't really come to my tournaments as much because I have a little brother and other siblings she has to tend to. But she always is just checking on me, making sure I'm having fun, like just being the best mom she can be from home. So.
When you say you have a little brother, you have like a little brother. It's not like a little brother who's 12 or 13. Wilden is 4 or 5 years old. In my opinion, and then you have older siblings. In my opinion, and you can tell me I'm wrong, that's grounding for you because you see someone who is innocent and new to the world that you probably help out with a lot too. How much has Wilden helped you as a young woman? How much is being present in front of someone who watches your every move? You know that. How much has Wilden helped you grow?
Well, he has taught me a whole lot of patience. That is the main thing. A whole lot of patience. I did not know. Like I was the youngest for 12 years. So having a little boy around, I was like, okay, wow, there's a lot more to this than I thought. Like this whole child thing. So he taught me patience and how to be nice and everything.
How far is Alabama from where you are now, from your home?
An hour to an hour and 20 minutes. Depends on traffic.
Okay, perfect. So it works out great. It sounds like you're really, really close to your family, and you could still get home and do all those fun things and be a part. What do you like to do in your spare time? Because again, I'm scrolling through and I come across this picture of you with a ginormous rifle. So you told me you're one of those sweet home Alabama hunting girls? Because I'm always so impressed when somebody's got a skill like that, because I couldn't do that.
Well, my middle sister, her name's Brinley, she hunts a lot. And they're big farm people, like all that. So I go have fun with them and do that. So where I live is like basically on the lake, and we have a lake house. So that's my favorite thing to do in the summer when I'm home, which is not often, but whenever I am home, I love the lake. And then I hang out with my friends for the most part if I'm not doing softball. And that's really it. I'm a very busy girl. Basketball throws in, but I'm very busy. So that's mainly the things I do.
Are there any personal goals or things that you want to accomplish? I know this last year, it's your final hurrah. You've got to be excited, but there's still this, I hear it in your voice, your passion for your hometown, your friends, your family. What are your goals over this next year before you take off for college?
So I want to become the Gatorade Player of the Year. That is my main thing before high school. And I have 2 seasons to do it, so I'm going to try my best. And that mainly goes to pitchers, so I'm going to have to work really hard for that. And oh no, that's that. I think that's it. Yeah, that's my main one for sure.
Gatorade Player of the Year, and that would be an incredible thing to do with yet another year of high school left. And you're tracking to do it. You were the State Player of the Year, earning that award. The 4A Player of the Year as a sophomore. That serves notice for all the older players, certainly. I want to ask you about the Birmingham Thunderbolts and their program. Justin Kaplan, who called you a great teammate, by the way, in an article I read, which is the highest compliment you can get. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the Bolts and Coach Kaplan.
So I'm sure y'all know Rocky's one of the best to do it. He puts us through everything to get prepared for college, and I'm on his team now, and I'm very excited to get to play for him and everything. But Coach Cap has helped me so much throughout the years. I called him during the recruiting process, like on September 1st. I was like, hey, Coach, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And he helped me out. He spoke to colleges for me. He kind of got my name out, helped me out with all that, told me what camps to go to and everything. So he's really been there for me as like another parent, helping me go through this process and everything.
And that's what a travel team is for. And you're, of course, talking about the legend Rocky Thompson, who's such a great coach, and we have seen his impact. Well, listen, congratulations on all you've accomplished. What a joy to have you on to introduce yourself to all of us on the personal side. We know your game, and this brings you out personally. Thanks for soldiering through while you're hoarse with a little bit of an under-the-weather voice. Your stories, your words were equally as impactful, so that didn't matter. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm real tired.
There we go. There we go. She was a PGF Futures All-American, Ambry Taylor. Also, we want to thank Gaby Mizelle, who was great on this podcast as well. We drop them as often as we can, hopefully every other week. It's the PGF Players Podcast, this one, the Hardcore Recruiting Edition. We'll see you next time.